Greetings, everyone. Today, I'd like to talk about identity. ID. That's who I be. So let me start off with my name. You see, I am Francis, never less than clever, just a French speaking African born as a hot weather. Well, that's just how it be in Memphis, Tennessee. Summertime, so hot with humidity. All you could do is grab yourself a long Cadillac, drop the top back, bump your little Outcast, 3 6 Mafia, UGK, what have you, and then take yourself to a 90-minute football game. Football game. Well, I forgot. Here in America, this country, they love to call that sport soccer, right? Well, let us review the expectations of a young black boy. Yo, you tall, you ball, and you hoop for your school. If not, you running track, right? Well, no. See, a young black brother like me would rather play in the MLS. That is Major League Soccer, of course, where the crowd is the best and get hype off for less. And I'm just trying to change some of these stereotypical views. Maybe if folks listen to the blues and they'd get a clue, right? Blues clues will check. You can't get a clue of who I am by just looking at me, analyze my demise. Late 90s, baby, only fate can remind me that I am a complex individual with my own culture simply influenced by those of others. I break down closed-minded thought processes, and just because I'm young don't mean I can't teach you a lesson. So, bro, open your mind. Open your mind, shawty. Open your mind, sir. Don't mind me. I'm simply attempting to help you. Mesdames et messieurs, mais juste parce que vous comprenez pas ne veut pas dire que vous pouvez pas comprendre. Translation, all I'm saying is just because you don't understand something don't mean it's not to be understood. See, if you are superior or even feel as such, doesn't mean that your mindset, the way you think and feel, your morals, your standards, your views on a so-called proper life shouldn't be questioned. Why? Only because I'm attempting to achieve understanding. Understanding to further my knowledge and use of logic. And these words may seem caustic, but look, I'm only being real with you. Black hooded suspect, my brother, I must be a killer. I must be a killer. I must be a killer. Can you feel the sting society has placed on me? So good with words, I am the bee. My appearance making it quite hard to see that I'm more to what you might think. So when it comes to my identity, his identity, her identity, even your identity, you'd be a fool if you was to ever judge we. Thank you. Peace.
Wow. Joshua, thank you. I mean, fantastic, powerful, everything. I mean, first let me welcome each one of you to the third annual My Brother's Keeper Youth Panel. I am Elliot Perry, and I'm here to moderate today's conversation and discussion. There's no more fitting venue for a conversation with boys and men of color than this venue right here, Grizzlies Prep, an all-boys middle school founded in partnership with the Memphis Grizzlies. The mission of the school echoes the goals laid out by President Obama in the White House, My Brother's Keepers initiative. We will talk more about that initiative in a few minutes, but first, a few ground rules. We already talked about the cell phone, so make sure your phone's on silent or off. This is meant to be a dialogue. I think that we hope that we'll invite all of the panelists here to open up about the conversations we want to have, and feel free not to just stick with the script, but just talk freely about what's happening around this. Be respectful of the next person, so let that person finish before either you elaborate on that conversation or start a new conversation. For those in the audience, obviously we will give you guys a chance to discuss in this conversation, so be attentive to these young men. Let me introduce the panelists. First, our young men and our young scholars. Grant Hill, a senior at Harding Academy. Dontario Tate, a junior at Middle College at CBU. Michael Grady, right? Michael Grady, a senior at Hollis F. Price Middle College. And then Carl Johnson, a senior at Middle College at CBU as well. And we also have, and I missed, a Hall of Famer, well, a future Hall of Famer, let me say, and our own Memphis Grizzlies, Vince Carter. Thank you, Vince, for joining us. Vince has really been passionate about ensuring that young men of color not only have access to the best in class in terms of academics, extracurricular programming, but also be able to participate in programs like this. He's consistently, and I mean he's consistently leveraging his celebrity to reinforce that young men need to be all in, one, be committed, secondly, and also be disciplined and engaged. So again, Vince, thank you for your commitment to not just our community, but communities across the country. We're also pleased to have Burnell Holland. Thank you for joining us in this conversation. Burnell is coming from D.C., My Brother's Keepers Alliance in Washington, D.C., so thank you for coming. He moved this trip up a day to be here, so we're pleased to have you here. We want to hear a little bit more about that My Brother's Keeper initiative later on. So let's start the questions and let's start the conversation, and let's start it with you, Burnell. I know you've been traveling around the country attending or organizing conversations just like the one we're having now. You know, just briefly summarize My Brother's Keeper initiative and why the focus on young men of color right now.
So, I mean, I think most of the people in the room sort of know generally what the My Brother's Keeper Alliance is, and what the My Brother's Keeper initiative is. And so it was definitely born out of a call to action put forth by President Barack Obama in 2014. And we've since seen an overwhelming response throughout the country from cities, municipal governments, county governments, the private sector, and just neighborhoods all across America banding together in support of our young men. As the goal of My Brother's Keeper is to improve academic and life outcomes for boys and young men of color, and to make sure that our young men are actually able to reach their full potential, and doing so in a manner that, and to levels that we haven't seen before. And the Alliance, you know, I specifically work for the My Brother's Keeper Alliance, which is a separate 501c3. We were a nonprofit started in the spring of 2015. As most of you know, we had a presidential election recently. And as the transition of the Obama administration to the Trump administration occurs, you know, it is certainly been put on our shoulders as the MBK Alliance to make sure that the work of My Brother's Keeper continues on. And let's make no mistake, this is work that doesn't just belong to the president, and he'll tell you that himself, and has done so on multiple occasions. This is work that belongs to all of us, and not just black and brown people, right? This is the work of America, because when our boys don't do well, the country doesn't do well. You know, it was maybe a couple months ago, ESPN's Undefeated had a town hall with the president, and he referenced that if we were to close the educational achievement gap between boys and young men of color and their white counterparts, we could see upwards of 2% growth in GDP. And 2% seems like a small number, but when you're talking about the U.S. economy, you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars that are not being materialized or not being, achieved in our country because of various obstacles that have been in the way of young men in cities like Memphis and all across the nation. So it has been an honor to have a chance to go around to various cities and learn about how cities are addressing these issues and spanning from cradle to career, right? Yeah. We know that the academic achievement gap begins before young people enter preschool, right? You can actually track and align sort of the achievement gap that you would see in pre-K with the number of words or vocabulary that a young person has been exposed to in the household that they come from. So this is something that, you know, has to be addressed at all levels, from entering school ready to learn and making sure young people are ready to read at grade level by grade 3, graduating from high school on time, getting the proper training that they need to enter the workforce, getting gainfully employed, and also making sure our neighborhoods and communities are safe. So all of this work is not just something that the MBK Alliance is doing. It's something that many cities have doubled down on, Memphis being one of them, and many organizations that have been doing this work for decades, have been re-energized through this call to action. And so we are here in Memphis, and as you said, I came a day early to be a part of this discussion, but I'm also excited to do work long term about making sure we extend opportunities to young men, like the young men that are sitting in the circle, in this room, and beyond. So glad to be here.
Mission work.
That's right.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, Carl, do you feel you have equal opportunities to achieve your potential and your dreams? I mean, just thinking about where you live, where you come from, school you go to, do you feel like you have the quality opportunities and the equal opportunities to achieve those dreams?
I believe that, given where I come from, I do have the opportunities, but I recognize the fact that because I'm black, there are some opportunities that have not been afforded to me, just of that fact. But from the opportunities I've gotten, I'm very grateful for. But I do realize there are some opportunities that I have not been offered.
Yeah. What about you, man?
I do feel like I have equal opportunity, but I do recognize at the same time that I might have to work twice as hard as maybe my white counterparts because I might not have the same resources and the same financial advantages that they have. And also we have to recognize that I might have to work extra hard to overcome that perception that or that people have of people like us, that we are deviant and that we can be successful. So when those opportunities arise, I have to make sure that I work to overcome those perceptions so I can move to the next level. But for us, I think it's more than, it's going to take more than just saying I want to do something. It's going to take establishing a goal, making a goal ladder, keep on moving forward, and keep God by your side to help you achieve those things.
Absolutely. Ontario.
I feel like I do have an equal opportunity simply because how I carry myself. I feel like anybody can have the equal opportunity. Just it all depends on how you hold yourself up. Like if you're, going around, saggy pants, hair all over the place, of course they're going to rule you out because your first impression is everything. And I feel like how I'm walking around, shirt tucked in, I actually look like I am very respectful. I hold myself together, and they actually consider me being, someone suitable for whatever I'm applying to or going into. So I feel like I do have an equal opportunity.
Mike?
I do feel that we have equal opportunity, especially in the city of Memphis.
Yeah.
There are all sorts of programs in place. Mentors also always offering a helping hand. The charter schools that we have, we're in high school, we can gain college credits here. But at the same time, there are some opportunities that we won't get simply because of, like he said, financial situations or where we live or whatever it may be.
Can I add to that?
So, yeah,
I want to say
absolutely.
one thing, same situation as you guys, continue to demand respect by what you said. Carry yourself in that way. The way you carry yourself is well, the way you present yourself is well, the way you be looked at, period. We understand that. And if you want to achieve stuff, if you can't, you don't know what it is, go find it. Ask questions. Do not be afraid to ask questions because just like us all sitting here today, if one person asks a question where you don't feel comfortable asking that question, but you help everybody, because some of us we're afraid to ask questions sometimes. If I don't understand, I'm gonna ask the question because I want to know. And I know asking that question can help everybody in the room at that same point. So never be afraid to ask the questions, to gain knowledge, to gain the power, to gain those steps that you need because of just what you said. You don't have the same opportunities, but you can create those opportunities. You know what I'm saying? You can create them. And when they see your determination, regardless they said you can't do it, you know what they'll say? You know what? I didn't think he could do it, but he demands it. He demands the respect. He wants to be whatever. And I said this last year when we sat here, I just don't ever say, oh, because of where I come from, I can't make it. I'm not supposed to make it. Oh, yeah, like you've already said it. I can make it. It's there for me. Sometimes you got to go take it. Now, are you afraid to do it? or are you willing to do it? It's up to you.
So just let me add to that in terms of thinking about perception, thinking about all of these things, and thinking about what Vince just said. You can make it, but a part of it is, are you willing to finish the race? Because a lot of it is that some people just quit on themselves. And I said this, and I want to ask you this, Vince, and just talk a little bit about where you grew up, is the person that you see in the mirror every day is the first person that's going to tell you whether you can or can't succeed. And so are you willing to push through when you face those challenges? I think that's what Vince is getting at. Do you have to kick the door in, or are you just waiting on it to open up for you? And we don't mean that literally, we just meaning, being persistent. Yeah, so talk a little bit about just kind of, we talked a little bit about dealing with the same things. They may be packaged different than our generation, but we're still dealing with the same things. So talk a little bit about just you growing up and how you've made it, not just from a back, we get that you're gifted, but in terms of just making it
comes
personal.
a lot behind that, because I, for a long time, wanted to be a professional athlete, okay? And I feel like if we walk in any other community in the world, we're gonna be perceived as athletes first, just because. Maybe you're built like an athlete, you're tall like one, or whatever. But for me, I come from a family of educators. And I date back to May 20th, 2001. That day is significant to me because it was Game 7 of a playoff game. And I chose first and foremost to go back and walk across the stage and get my degree. First, 9 a.m. Played in the game, 7 p.m. in a different state. Walked across the stage in North Carolina, missed a game-winning shot, Game 7, against Allen Iverson, if you guys know who he is. I'm sure you do. Game 7, missed a game-winning shot that night. But I was able to hold my head up high because I set the bar to the next level. Because we always say what? Do we say athlete-student, or do we say student-athlete? Student-athlete. So I wanted to uphold that. I was always taught to be a student-athlete. I was always taught to not be afraid to try different things. I was in the marching band. I was picked at for that. Oh man, you're in the band, whatever, that's for nerds, that's for this. You know what I'm saying? But I wasn't allowed to play sports if I didn't carry a 3.0. That was the standard that was set for me, because the standard is what, 2.0. Okay, cool. Is that you just want average for yourself, or you want to go-getter, be a go-getter? And I created that mindset, which brought me to that day, 2001, where I had a decision to make, which was easy to me. But when you turn that TV on, I was crucified for it. Oh, you're in the NBA, you have all these millions, you can go buy a degree. You can get it anytime. Well, all of those people, these analysts, these professionals, I guarantee they walked across that stage to get their degree. Why can't I? And that was the bar I set. I mean, there's so many differences, there's challenges I've gone through, but that was one of the biggest ones that was right there for everybody to see. An opportunity for the NBA to say, hey, here's a guy, we promote Read to Achieve, becoming that student athlete, but nobody had my back. Nobody wanted to support that. But I was still able to hold my head up high and still talk about it today, whether they appreciate it or not. I appreciate it, which now I can tell my daughter, I can sit here and tell everybody who's watching that I wasn't afraid to make my decision and stick to it and see it to the end. I was able to see it to the end. Now, the ultimate cap-off was me to make that shot. We move on to the next round and possibly play against Kobe in the NBA Finals, because it was the Sixers versus the Lakers. So yeah, it bothered me. But at the end of the day, I go home to my house every day. My front door, when I open that door, I look to the left, you know what's hanging on my wall? That degree. Can't take that from me. You can't take it from me. So that's something to be proud of. And finish your goals, whatever that may be. Finish the job. Believe it, and you can achieve it.
Yeah, and we consistently talk about race relations in the inner city. We talk about black-on-black crime. Mm-hmm. We talk about police brutality against black and brown people. We talk about our school systems being underperforming, also underfunded, and we can say this, I think we can say this publicly and candidly right here. Take me to any community in this country. Drop me off, and I can tell you where the worst schools are. I can tell you where the underperforming schools are. So, again, we can talk about race. We know that we can talk about being behind, left behind. Talk about just kind of, with my brother's keeper, kind of the race relation conversation you guys have been having across the country.
Sure.
And I know we want to focus on race, but it's just not just about race. This, to me, this is about achievement, you know, in spite of. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a real thing. I mean, you can't talk about America without talking about race. I mean, just the way that we were founded, you know, they're inextricably linked, the concept of race and our country. So when you think about My Brother's Keeper, there is, how do I say this? Boys and young men of color are always going to be looked at as, have always been looked at as other, right? Whether that's within our own communities or, you know, when you think about the majority of the community looking at us, et cetera. How do we break that wall down, right? And that's really just a subset of racism right there, right? Making assumptions about people based on what they look like, what the media's told you to think about them, and how to respond to them. So our work is not just about you all doing what you're already doing, which is achieving, right, to high levels. 3 of you, I talked to you earlier, already applied to college. You're on the right path. You're right behind them as a junior. So you're breaking barriers down by smashing other people's expectations for you. And the work that we're trying to do systematically is, how do we help you out from the other side, right? As you achieve individually, how do we make sure that there are the same systems that may have kept, you know, our parents, grandparents from getting access to academic institutions or getting access to bank loans, or from not getting a fair shake within the criminal justice system, whatever it may be. It's up to the adults and the young people to stand together to figure out, how do we continue to chip away at some of those barriers that have defined, unfortunately, our country since its inception. And you know, there's many ways to do that practically. One thing I could speak to just that we've done throughout the country is that you know, we have conversations in cities that we call milestone sessions, right? There are 6 milestones in My Brother's Keeper. I generally reference most of them in my opening remarks, but you know, we've done conversations around milestone 6. We know, you know, as long as you can remember, there has been violence against men of color from both authority and, I guess, self-appointed authority. And we've seen that violence continue, and it reached boiling points this summer and the summer before. And even, you can't tell the story about, and I have to say this, you can't tell the story about My Brother's Keeper without referencing Trayvon Martin, because that was part of the reason why President Obama, you know, went back to his advisors and he said, you know, we have to do something. I want it to be data-driven. I want it to be, you know, thoughtful, and something that's actually going to have a lasting impact. But that whole conversation and the inception of this initiative was, you know, born out of his frustration about how we having something like that happened to Trayvon happen, and we saw the result of it all. To the point about the conversation that we have, I was in Seattle in December, where we did a conversation that we've also done in the city of Detroit. We did one in the Bronx, New York, in conjunction with the police department in each one of those markets, where we brought boys and young men of color together with men in the community and police officers, and in most cases we would have the mayor and the police chief participate as well, and have circles like this, have broader town hall conversations. But the main point is to make sure that we're uncovering and we're being honest about the pain, the tension that has unfortunately existed between the law enforcement community and communities of color. And you know, the only way you start to break down those systems, as I mentioned before, is by being honest and upfront about what is really there, what's really going on, and giving young people the chance to speak to officers that patrol their communities in a safe space, you know, where their bosses are in the room, you know, the political leadership is in the room, that's how you start to really get to a point where we're airing out, what are the frustrations that you have when approached on the street by somebody who thinks that you're up to no good? What are the fears that an officer has when they're trying to make it home to their family at the end of the day? How do we meet in the middle and make sure that we're developing relationships that avoid the violence that we've seen time and time again, where unarmed and in many cases innocent men are losing their lives? So it starts with dialogues like that, but that's just a small piece of it.
And so with that, again, we can consistently talk about the injustices that happen, but I want to talk to you young men about what are you going to do different to shape that image. We talk about that negative image. You talked about your appearance. There are so many things that we can do to shape the image. What are you guys going to do that? So we'll start with you, Grant.
I think that the biggest thing is surrounding people with successful men and well-spoken men, because these people who are struggling in school and resorting to crime and selling drugs and stuff like that, it's because they haven't seen people who are successful. So when you can't see somebody who's successful, you have like no inspiration to be successful yourself. So we had to do a better job of surrounding these people with mentors, also with people who are well-spoken and who carry themselves well. But also I would say that, I forgot what I was going to say. But
Sorry, Terry. We'll come back.
I feel like we should start recognizing more of the good things, because I feel like now we recognize so many bad things and so many bad situations to the point where the teenage community think it's okay. And I feel like if we continuously to recognize the good, awards, the good things that we are doing in our community, it'll be more familiar with us, and then, it'll eventually get out there.
Yeah.
I feel that mentorship and showing leadership to your own peers are really big. So I feel that everyone should try to set an example for the next person. Everybody play their part, work as hard as they can in every aspect, and then show other people coming up behind them how to do it. And with mentors, showing them the way, connecting them with different people, and things of that nature.
Carl.
I believe that one of the biggest things we need to focus on is kind of shifting Black culture in a way that kind of changes its focus. So right now, our focus, like what you said, when we go somewhere, when we go to other parts of the world, we're looked at as athletes. I think one thing we need to work on is we need to change not only our focus, but change what the interests are. Like we should work towards getting, like for example, we should work towards getting more Black people into the STEM majors, because they are the future. They are where the jobs are going to be in the next 10, 15 years. That's where the money is going to be. If we can get more of us in there, it means that when a Black child thinks about what they want to be in the future, they can see themselves in that position.
Yeah, Vince, you have anything to add to that?
No, that was great, man. I think everything they're saying, I agree with 100% on everything each one of you said, because, setting the bar, and we need visual. It's, every time you hear it, it's like a pipeline. You hear it, it's like, all right, cool. But when you see that visual, you see that African-American man in whatever position you may want, now you start to believe it. Because sometimes you will see a person of another color up there, and you're like, okay, I think I can do it, but it's tougher for us to believe it because you've never been told that you can, but you're trying to change the culture in your mind when you can't see it. But when you can see it, it's easy to be like, I want to be like him. Now Barack Obama was our president. Now how many young men coming up can say, you know what, I want to be the president. I want to make a difference. I want to go through these tough 4 years that I have to go through where I can make a change. I want that because it's there now. Same thing with Tiger Woods in golf, Venus and Serena in tennis. It wasn't the popular thing coming up in our time, but now Tiger Woods, so it's just having to see it, breaking those barriers down. And everybody can do that if we're willing to do it. We'd be willing to put the work in and willing to finish the job.
And to piggyback on that is, talk a little bit about, because I know we always talk to our young men about, facing adversity, getting knocked down, getting right back up, and dusting yourself off and getting right back in the race. all the things the challenges that you're going to have in life, and not just from a black or white perspective, just from a life perspective. I mean, life has a way of teaching you. Life has a way of knocking you down, slapping you around. You know, talk a little bit about you know, when you do have those adversities. How have you plowed through those adversities?
Well, it starts with your willingness to get back up. First and foremost, are you willing to get back up? Because we enjoy all the things in life when it's easy. And we're not really to fight as hard sometimes when we get knocked down and maybe you see that race going ahead and you're still trying to pick yourself back up and wondering what the heck just happened. Now you're left behind. Now you're having to play catch up. Are you willing to do it? I was willing to do it. I was willing to do whatever it took to achieve those goals. Like you said, that goal tree, hey, I want to accomplish my goals however I can. I want to be the best at it. I want to make a difference, regardless of if I fell down, knocked down. So now when I get back up and I finish that goal, all you can do is shake my hand. That's amazing. You were able to persevere, because that's the biggest thing. Persevering, fighting through it, believing that you can achieve it. That's more than anything. So like you said, one of you guys said that when you wake up in that morning, when every morning you look in that mirror, I might get knocked down today, but I'm gonna get up today also to finish my job. It has to be. Make it a routine. Just like you wake up, use the bathroom, brush your teeth. When you're sitting in there brushing your teeth, looking in that mirror, it's like, it's gonna be a good day. Whatever happens, it's gonna be a good day. You know, that's how we get out of the mud, whatever that may be. Whatever. I don't care what your background looks like. I don't care what your neighborhood looks like. Today's gonna be a good day. That means I'm gonna make it. I'm succeeding today. Little steps, 1% better. Coach Fizz says that all the time, 1% better. Yeah. 1% better, it makes sense. 1% better, those numbers add up. When you see pennies on the ground, sometimes you'll just leave it there. You see a quarter on the ground, you pick it up. Of course, you see $1, $5, whatever. But those pennies add up. Those 1% add up.
Yeah, Burnell, talk a little bit too about, I mean, you've been across the country, about how we can face our adversities and face our challenges for our young men and just continue to encourage them and wrap our arms around them.
Together. Yeah. I mean, that's like, you will never go as far going by yourself than you would with somebody helping you. And I think that absolutely to Vince's point, I mean, you're going to get knocked down and there's going to be obstacles that come your way, but life is really about how you respond to them. It's like the obstacles are a given. Like, that's a fact. At some point, somebody's going to knock you on your butt. It may be a person, it may be an institution, it may be a law, whatever. It's going to happen. What are you going to do about it? Like, that's the question. And so, you know, the big part that we have to remember is that while people are fighting their individual battles, how do you figure out how to support them along the way? And I just think that this work in particular is so much about how do we invest the private sector, how do you invest local government, how do you invest grandma and uncles in making sure that, you know, the young men in this circle, young men in this room are going to be okay, right? And I think that's really the primary way we get over major obstacles. There has to be, you know, the personal responsibility piece, absolutely, but you can try as hard as you want to, but you still won't get as far if there's somebody, you know, actually taking your hand and showing you the way. And we've all needed that. I think if you ask anyone around the circle, including you all, like, there's something in your life that you've accomplished that you can point to a specific person and say, you know what, I wouldn't have been able to do it without their help. And so our job is to make sure we expand that circle of people who are there, making sure that they understand that, you know, what happens in our nation is a responsibility of all of us. And so just because it's not your kid or it's not your brother, it's still something that you should be accountable for, because we're all in this together, you know. And yeah, there's so many, you know, political and economic arguments you could make, but let's just start with decency, right? Like, it doesn't have to be that sophisticated.
I think that's the hardest thing for everyone to see. We're all in it together. Right? Yeah. You can still help someone else, and that's kind of the picture that's the toughest to paint, that comes clear in our minds. Like, hey, you say, he's not my brother, he'll be all right, he'll get it. But like,
And you can help somebody even though you're
Like,
young,
that's
right?
what we're doing right now. All these people who may be watching somewhere else. I mean, you just want that like to click on. It's like, you know what? I want to be like you young men, all of you here. I want to be like these guys. They're trying to make a difference. They're trying to do for themselves, because you becoming successful not only in your family, for your family, now other people see you like, I want to be like him. He gets it. Now I get it. Now I want that, because we're in the community. I mean, we're in the world now where everybody's like, I want that, but they're not willing to do what it takes to get that. They just want it handed to them. It's not going to be handed to you.
So before
Let's
we
just
go
face
to,
that fact.
I'm sorry, but before we go to the audience, I just want to ask one question to you, and then maybe one of our scholars is, a lot of this we talk about too, but there's also another component to it. It's being open to criticism. You know, a lot of times when people get criticized, they do one or two things. Either they shut down and fight back against it, and it could be honest criticism, or being open to that criticism and being willing to learn from that. So talk a little bit about criticism, then I just want to ask one of the young
It
scholars.
takes some getting used to, because when you think you have your game plan set and you're criticized, I was there, I've been there, and it takes practice. This is not something you say, oh, you have to, you have to be this way. No, it takes practice, and I've been there where it's like, oh, you're not good enough. Oh, that your work, or you don't speak well enough. You don't do whatever it may be, and it just knock you down, and that's where we get back to that perseverance and that bump in the road. Now, I just got knocked down. You okay with it? Lay there. If you're not, get up and fix the problem, listen to the problem or the criticism, and move forward. That's the problem. I think we hang on to the negative so much where we're angry. And that's where our anger begins to build up. So, yeah, you know, I want the criticism. And sometimes when you say, hey, be honest with me, and you just hope it's not as bad as what they're going to say to you. And when they say it, you're like, oh, man, I ain't want to hear that now. Come on, I'm not asking you again. But at the same time, when you go home, and like for me, I'll hear stuff like that. It'll bother me. I'm like, man, I shouldn't ask you that. But when I go home and think about my day, because this is something I do, and I recommend that for everyone, go home and think about your day and think about how it went. And now that stuff starts to sink in. You're like, you know what, maybe what they said was right. Now I can adjust. I can pick up my pieces, or I can put this puzzle together. I'm going to get the criticism. Now you just kind of like, all right, cool. You know, here's all my criticism. I'm going to knock one off at a time till they're all gone. Move forward, getting ready for the next bump, the next course in the road, the next bump in the road. And you know how to handle yourself. It's practice.
Yeah, so Grant, talk a little bit about how you handle criticism.
Yeah, I think it definitely takes a lot of humility and a lot of courage to be able to admit that you're wrong, because you're going to be taking advice from people who have either been in your position or who know how to help you, because a lot of times we're just stuck to what we're doing, and I struggle with this a lot, that we don't want to like concede our thoughts and follow somebody else's advice. It's really hard for us to listen to other people, but the thing is, like, you can't get any better unless you change what you're doing. Right. Insanity is doing something over and over again, expecting a different result. But we have to be willing to listen to other people who can give us advice and help us to get on the right road.
Excellent. We're going to hear from one audience, young man in the audience, Lee Anthony. Could you stand up? Lee Anthony is studying ballet with one of our partners with the Grizzlies Foundation, the New Ballet Ensemble. Talk a little bit about your family, your neighborhood, kind of where you grew up, and then is your environment promoting and supporting your dreams? So do you feel like I have every opportunity to succeed in what I want to succeed in?
Yes, sir. My name is Anthony Douglas. I'm 17. I'm a senior at Melrose High School. My family love what I do. I grew up in Orange Mound. My family loves what I do. They support me as best as they can. But like certain things try to get in the way, such as like transportation, funds, and just anything that tries. When I first started dancing, I danced for New Ballet Ensemble.
Right.
I started dancing in 3rd grade. I founded it at Dunbar Elementary School, and now I'm a senior. I started in 3rd grade. My environment loves what I do. Like every single soul that finds out that I dance and do ballet, they like, man, that's crazy. Like I never seen a black boy or somebody from Orange Mound, period, dancing ballet. Cause like it's all about sports, like you said earlier. It's all about sports. Like when you used to look up the black boy, a black man or black boy, whatever, you think sports. But like me, I do ballet. Yeah, and it's just like fascinating to some people. Like my family first. That's my root. Like New Ballet is my root. That's my first family, and my family at New Ballet. Like the girls, like it's very diverse there. Like all the girls and boys there, I think of it as brothers and sisters, big brothers and little sisters, and little sisters. Like it's just diverse, and like people older than me, people younger than me. Like we all just a family. Like you don't think of racism or nothing there. And in my community, like it's very unsafe. But I don't let that hold me back though. I have two main goals. My first main goal is to be the first in my family to graduate from a 4-year college. And my second goal is to give back to my community. Because right now I see, like I didn't know if I deserve to be who I am right now.
Oh, you deserve
I don't know.
Yeah, you deserve
I didn't know, but now I know. I'm well gifted. When I first started dance, I did not know how to dance. Honestly. My second goal, is to give back to my community. I see the faith that young people have, like they try to copy me and do what I do. That's how I started, honestly. And it's just a process to me. And it really starts in my community, where I started from.
Good.
That's where I want to start to give back from, my community.
Excellent. Thank you, man. Excellent. So we have a couple other guys in the audience, but going back to Dontario, what can adults do? Because I think you mentioned it as well, is I want to hear from the young people. I want to hear their voice. I want to hear what matters, what doesn't matter, where we're falling short, where we got it going. Where can adults help you? What are some of the things we can do, or adults in general that are in your life, or just in general help you be successful?
Honestly, I feel like the adults just have to be there, because I feel like a lot of the problems root from the kids not having someone, to talk to tell them right from wrong. And I just feel like if you're there to not only tell them what to do, but like build a personal relationship with them, for them to have somebody to talk to, they'll build actual conscience to actually tell them, hey, that's not right. Don't do that. Remember what such and such told you. So you have to, think about the consequences of what your actions may cause. And so I just feel like the adults should just be there, and I feel like our community would be way more successful.
Yeah, I want to go back to the audience for a couple of our scholars here at Grizzlies Prep to just ask them that same question. Cameron and Troy, can you guys stand up?
My name is Cameron Jones, and I go to Marion High School. Really, adults should set goals and really set these goals that we can accomplish. They should also promote education and show us a pathway so we can succeed. Excuse me. And also, like, I guess every adult in here can be a parent and show us what we can do. Like, I've heard it a lot. It takes a community to raise a child, and I can say personally that I've just gained something from every adult that I've met or encountered. So, yeah.
My name is Troy Williams. I am a junior at Cordova High School. I think parents should set very high standards for their kids. Now, don't just start them basic. Give them high standards. If you know your child's a 2.0 child, let them strive higher. Let them go for that 3.0. See if they can do it. Because it takes everybody to encourage something. Each person can give one word, many words, one word of advice to change that whole child's life. They'll probably be bigger than their parents, bigger than anybody in their family. So those are my thoughts.
Excellent. Just bring it back into the panel. I know we're starting to finish this up a little bit, but If I could, maybe a parent or an adult may have a question for our scholars, or just may want to interject something into the conversation. Are you guys, does anybody have any questions?
Don't get quiet now, parents.
Teacher or
Teachers, anybody.
whomever.
Go for it.
Hi, my name is Tim Green. I'm the director of STEM programming for Girls Inc. of Memphis. Also a former teacher here at Grizzlies Prep. I have a question for the panel and also young men here. In Memphis today, how can you see yourself being the leader of the new generation coming up? How can you see yourself being a positive change for Memphis?
So one of you guys want to grab that question in terms of just leadership in general as a young man?
Well, one way I try and lead, and from what I can do is, I'm part of an organization called the National Society of Black Engineers. I'm the president of the local chapter here, and our mission statement is actually to increase the number of culturally responsible Black engineers who succeed academically, excel professionally, and positively impact the community. And as I was saying earlier, our STEM fields are what will be the future of the job market. If we don't enter it now, we'll have to play catch up later. And while that won't completely prevent us, it's a stipulation that we can avoid.
Fantastic.
I feel like as a leader, rooting back from the last question, you should actually try to understand the people that you're trying to help, because like you can't really give help if you don't understand the situation. So I feel like as long as you bond with that person to actually understand like what they go through, you won't necessarily understand everything that they've been through, but if you can get an idea of what they've been through, you can actually kind of put your input in and could have possibly like a huge impact on their life.
And so leadership can be at any level. Yeah. I think that's what we're trying to get at is you don't have to be 50, 60, 70 years old, or I mean you could be 15 and be a leader in your community. And I'm sure.
I think young kids don't understand that.
Yeah.
I really don't. I think they say sometimes like I have nobody to look up to. You be that leader. Yeah. Because there's some 5, 6-year-olds at this point who need somebody to look up to. You know, I think we always look at the the director of something, the celebrity of something, and say, they should be the leaders. And, Charles Barkley had, I don't want to be the role model, and there was an uproar, and I understand that. But at the same time, parents can be a role model for somebody else's kid. Because we all struggle looking up to our parents sometime or listening to our parents. That's just the reality of what kids do. I've been there, and I'm going through it as my child is 11. So she's going into that phase where it's like, yeah, whatever, Dad. Yeah. But she'll go listen to somebody else who just said the same thing. And it's like, I just said that. So, and I've been there. So, I mean, we can be, as parents, we can be a role model for somebody else's child. Because at the end of the day, your child will kind of look back and like, all right, my dad knows a little something here, or whatever that may be. So I just think as you guys are role models right now. You just don't realize it. You just have to stand in the forefront and say, that's what I want to be. I want to make a change. I want to make a difference. And I think you guys are doing that, like what you're doing, and continue to create the open conversation about it. And now you tend to stimulate the minds for others in your community who maybe never even thought about trying to change themselves, much less the community, because it starts with you changing yourself first. And when you do that, you're willing to help your community.
If this motivates anyone, I've learned personally that a lot of the younger community tends to listen to their peers rather than the adults. So like, I feel like if you do, have the time to actually talk to one of your friends, talk to one of your, cousins, brothers, sisters, take the time to actually try to help them out instead of, whereas you're seeing your mom trying to give, advice to your sister and she's not listening a bit, but if you try and you notice a difference, let that motivate you to actually take that out into the world and help other people.
Yeah. And as we close, you want to add something to that, Burnell?
No, I'm just curious now. To the young men in the audience, raise your hand if you have a younger sibling. All right then. So
there you have it.
We got a room full of potential mentors, right? Everything that you do, there's somebody watching. So don't ever forget that. You're never too young to be a leader in your community. You already are, because there's somebody that's with you several hours a day that admires you, that looks up to you, and is looking up to you for protection and guidance. So we've all got to do our part. So even if it's just like, to your point, like talking to your friends, talking to, you know, the people that are right in your circle, that makes a difference. You know?
And last question, I know we have a few minutes, but you know, we always talk about grit and grind here. You know, we're a grind city. We want to grind it out. And we know, our kids know what grinding means. They've been grinding all of their lives. How do we begin to put a spin on that to say, you know, in the community I grew up in, you know, you have to fight your way through, or you have to prove yourself, or you had to do something, you know. So how do you put that spin on grind to say, now we want to do that in the classroom. Now we want to do that towards our goals. So same language, same concept, same words, different, just in a different way, you know, pushing that energy in a different way.
So I actually would be curious to hear what you all have to say being in high school right now. Like, how do you do that? Because you're clearly doing it already. So what is your, I mean, I have thoughts, but.
I personally feel that it starts with letting every kid know that you can't accomplish anything without hard work. Like, if you halfway do everything, you will never accomplish anything. Like, you can watch the Memphis Grizzlies and see the same thing. If they halfway play the whole game, they're not going to win.
Get halfway results.
And if they play hard the whole game, they're blowing somebody out.
Right.
So just setting that example for them, letting them know that you can't accomplish anything without hard work.
Grant?
The biggest thing for me is I would say you have to be okay with standing out and being different. I think the biggest thing is a lot of people don't try to achieve for the biggest things because they look weird to the people around them because nobody's doing it, and so they get their ideas shot down because they look weird. For me, I'm black, but I play golf. I'm in like AP classes, honor classes, and I'm one of like the few black people in there. So for me, I get made fun of. I get called white or different because I speak a little bit differently and I act a little differently from the other black people around me. But I just keep my head up because I know that it's okay for me to be different because I know like what goals I have in my mind and I know what I'm trying to achieve. So the biggest thing is getting people like me and getting people who are trying to achieve things around these people who have no motivation because they won't try to achieve things unless they see people around them doing it. So if we can stop that cycle of somebody getting an idea, getting it shot down, then we'll never achieve anything.
Can I just say, somebody's
Absolutely.
watching though. Somebody's taking notes. And inside they're afraid to step out and be like you, but they're taking notes. And it just takes them to have the courage to do what you're doing. But believe me, your work is being done for good cause. You said you had something?
I think one thing that has to happen is sometimes you have to be your own biggest supporter. Like, I have a friend, and his motto is, I'm my biggest role model. And that's how he keeps himself going. He always makes sure he works hard because he is who he respects most. And that is one of the biggest factors in success.
Heavy, yeah, heavy. I think, yeah, sometimes you just have to encourage yourself, you know, so.
In your journey, you're gonna have to encourage yourself.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna have some lonely nights where you feel like, man, nobody's listening, nobody gets me, but you get you. You understand what you're trying to do. So if you always have to be your self-motivator.
And with this, you know, as we finish up, I mean, I think you hit on something, Grant, is, you know, you say you may be a little bit different, you take AP classes, you play golf, but I want all of the young people here to realize something. No person in the world can beat you being you. Just be you, you know. If you have a mission in life, just be you, you know. Now, it may look different from the next person because you guys may grew up in a different area. You guys may have experienced different things. So him being him and you being you, that's what makes the world go round. So you can't be me and I can't be you. So be comfortable in yourself, being yourself. So again, man, I applaud you young men for what you're doing, how you're doing it, not just you young men sitting on the panel, all of these young men in this room. Believe in yourself. That's the first thing we talked about. That person that's looking back at you in the mirror, they're going to tell you whether you can succeed or not. That person in the mirror is going to tell you when to quit or when to persevere and push through. That's the first person that's going to tell you that. So again, keep pushing through, young man. Keep encouraging yourself. Our parents, our teachers, our mentors and mentees, I mean, let's just continue to wrap our arms around our young people and encourage them that anything is possible. It doesn't matter what zip code you come from. It doesn't matter where you grew up. It doesn't matter who your parents are. It doesn't matter if you're a single parent household. It doesn't matter if you're black. Whatever it may be, whatever obstacles you may have in life, if you believe you can achieve and you're willing to put in the work, it's possible. I mean, I think Barack has been through 2 terms, and I know in my lifetime I never thought that we would see an African-American president, and I don't think probably anybody in this room thought so. But timing is everything. And I can guarantee you guys one thing, and Vince, you can piggyback on this. In life, every young man in this room, in life, your number is going to be called. I don't know when, I don't know how, I don't know where. But at some point in life, the coach is going to say, Grant, get in the game. Get in the game. And if you're prepared, you know what you're going to do? You're going to snatch your warm-ups off, jump up, run to the scores table. But if you're not prepared, you know what you're going to do? You're going to know that I haven't been preparing. And you're not going to be as comfortable when your number is called.
You said hey, you're right. You're right, because then when that opportunity comes again, he's going to be like, no, you weren't ready last time.
Exactly.
We don't get that opportunity. Sometimes we're not fortunate enough to get a second opportunity. So take advantage of the first time. And and then if you make your mistakes and it falls by the wayside, you're able to hold your head up high and say, I did everything I could do, and I was prepared. But it didn't work out, because just like it didn't happen the first time, it is possible to happen the second time. And then guess what? You say it won't happen again. Like, it won't strike me twice. And I also want to add, for all of us in here today and people who are watching, we talk and we sit here and we feel good about what we're saying and what we need to do and what we want to do and what has to happen. But when the lights go off, we walk out here today, what happens next? What next? And then what? I think that's the biggest question of anything. We sit here and we say we want to we motivate everybody who's listening. We motivate ourselves. It sounds great. And this is just the biggest thing I say. I love sitting here having these discussions. But I always, in closing, I feel I have to say, when we leave and we walk past that exit today, we go out in this cruel world, what now? Do we still we think about what we talked about today and willing to do something about it for our community, for the world, and for ourselves? Or was it all just air we're putting in this room? It's up to us.
Yeah, so lastly, I know, Burnell, maybe you want to add to how can we continue to push this conversation? How can we continue to make a difference? Just piggybacking off of what Vince talked about is it mentoring? Is it something else? Is it, what are some of the things that
I would say there is no silver bullet, right? There's no one thing, right? It's a little bit of everything, and everything may not be the responsibility of one person to do, right? So if you figure out, I may not have, the time to volunteer every single day, but I can go once a month. That's a start, right? You're already doing something. And even when you all get to college, because you're going to college, like, you're on your grind to pursue your academic goals, you may be going to school in Memphis or you may be in another state. Be a part of that community too, right? Figure out how, because there's neighborhoods that look just like the neighborhoods you come from or your friends have come from in any place you're going to go to school. And people that are going to need to see young brothers like yourselves that have found their way to the next level of their academic journey. So I challenge you to continue that as you move on. To the young men in the audience, almost all of you have younger siblings. And I know you go to a great school, because I just know, if you have a younger sibling and you're not finding a way to read to them at some point, if they're really young, exposing them to books, but they know about the latest social media beef, like, I'm holding you responsible for having them go down a path where they're not being exposed to things that are going to help them become better people. That's up to all of you. And I think that, you know, we've all just got to figure out what is the slice of what we can do. Now, organizationally, I mean, I know, you know, we as the MBK Alliance are committed to the city of Memphis and working in lockstep with Mayor Strickland's office and, you know, trying to do what we can to continue the momentum that's been built here. And we want to do that through providing opportunities. One of the major things that we've done elsewhere in the nation is what we call job and opportunity fairs that we've done, where we're pulling in the private sector and putting young people to work, right? Removing any obstacle that may be in the way for a young person to get gainfully employed. Like if you need a haircut before your interview, we have barbershops on site. If you need a tie, we have Macy's giving out ties and teaching you how to tie them. You know, we're doing mock interviews and speed mentoring, all for the purpose of how do we set our young men up for success. Now, that's an example of a large-scale, expensive, drawn-out process that does have phenomenal results of young people being put to work on the spot that day, but there's other things that we can do every single day, whether that's just like having a conversation with one of your peers that you know might have the wrong perspective on something, or just being you, right? Being uniquely you, and setting an example for people that that they can see and take inspiration from. So there are so many different ways, but to Vince's point, it's got to be action. It has to be action. And so when you feel like you're hitting a wall, or you know there's no hope, you just can't give in to that kind of thinking, because there is something you can do. And if it's just you got to start something on your own, so be it. Because once people see leadership, they'll follow it. So if they see you're doing something, people will fall in line.
Hey, real quick, and we all like to talk, have conversation with our friends. So commit to, you know, once a week with your friends, you have that conversation once a week. You know, it could be uncomfortable to them, but you make it a habit. Next thing you know, it's like, hey, what time we meet today? Just like you ask, what time we're going wherever we want to go? Same thing. You just create it. You have to create it. You have to put it out there for it to happen sometimes, especially when you're trying to bring on the stubborn ones, the ones that don't want to change or aren't willing to change. Like I said, make them once a week. And it can go, okay, let's talk about it. Oh, here he goes again. But they expect it. They know once a week you're going to come with this again. And after a while, they tend to change. You're like, you know what? I was looking on TV today, and you know, I have something to share about that subject. And that's where it starts. That's where it starts. You just have to create it. And you guys have the ability to do that, whether you know it or not.
Yeah, so with that, I mean, thank you guys for all of the panelists for participating. One, the Memphis Grizzlies, thank you guys for setting this up. Grizzlies Prep, thank you guys for hosting. I mean, fantastic school. I'm always encouraged when I come in this building about the minds that we're changing and the young men that we're helping. Thank all the people who come out today to participate in this panel discussion. It's been a great discussion. So again, thank you.